I'm here to talk about comics and pop quizzes. Essentially, I represent the Citizen Report. We are a mostly online organization that helps teach civics. I'm going to start with an anecdote from when I started working with them, and that'll kind of demonstrate why it is we do what we do. So I remember in the first meeting, we were talking about districts and government structures and all this, and I kept hearing about, it went a little too fast. I kept hearing about the cow, and how the cow deals with this, and how the cow has to authorize that, and eventually I realized that they weren't talking about a cow, they were talking about a chief administrative officer, which most of the people in this room might know. I did not. But that for me was the genesis of wanting to work with an outfit like the Citizen Report, is realizing that we have all these little bits of information and things that are vital to us as parts of a community that we don't necessarily fully understand. Perhaps the people in this room do. I know that a lot of the people I talk to, my friends, we are completely out of the loop when it comes to civics. And that's one of the things that we've been trying to change. If you could skip forward to, So one of the questions we started out asking was, what do we actually know about how Uganda works? So our question was, where do we go from here? And our goal was to put Uganda in focus. Not to just have it be this thing that we have to endure, but something that we can actually feel can be aspirational, can be inspirational. I mean, literally sitting in this room for the past 2 hours has been one of the most inspirational times of my life, because there's so many people in here who refuse to believe that Uganda is broken. There's people who are actually putting their efforts behind us, getting to where we want Uganda to be, and that's really what the Citizen Report has been for me. So our mission has been to take the information that's out there, like, how our country got started, what it's been through, what it's going through, how things should run, and why the mechanics of the system actually should matter to every single person in this country. And how we've done that has been through 4 steps. 1, we gathered all this data, we curated it, we cleaned it up as best as we could, and how the government structure works, starting really from the very most basic level, from the local government, from the village level, and so on and so forth. Just putting all that information together and then putting it out there in a way that feels accessible to people who aren't necessarily of this world. So you think of things like your district council. Again, a lot in this room might know what all this means, but the majority of people out there, and this is not even an economic thing, this is just across the board. A lot of people are so detached from how these processes work, how they fit together, and how they affect our daily lives. So that's kind of what we're trying to address. And then the next step was to take all that information and put it on a fun, engaging platform. So like I said, we're currently mostly on social media, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, so on. But what we do is we put out content and we run a weekly pop quiz that astonishes me every week, that people, look forward to and sign up to do. Because what we've essentially taken is we've taken classroom information and restructured it so that it has a way for people who are no longer in school to engage with it, and it feels fun. My favorite people on the pop quizzes are the people who typically get, 1 out of 10 and post that. Because to me, that says that they want to be in rooms like this. They haven't given up. Sure, they're getting 1 out of 10 or 0 out of 10, but that bravery to not only attempt it, but then to post it, that's what we're aspiring to, is to have that desire again to be in touch with our country. The next step has been to foster accountability through, looking through specific government expenditures and budgets. Solomon Sarwanja, who's just been on stage, asked a question: who had looked at the Auditor General's report on COVID numbers or something? And no one raised their hand. And it's things like that. That information is out there, but we're not really reaching for it because it feels so detached from our daily lives. It feels like something that the right people will take care of, hopefully, or if it doesn't, the country is broken. So we are trying to foster accountability through looking at, the national budget. How does the money get spent? Where is it meant to go? Where does it actually end up going? And we're not journalists, I want to make that clear, because we're introduced as civic journalists. We see ourselves more as educators and storytellers. We're just taking the information that's out there, making it accessible for the public, but also for consumption by journalists and people who might be interested in data. And the last thing has been to take deep looks at the districts and people across the country. So the history of the districts, the nature of the districts, and really in-depth looks at how districts on a structural level exist. And our goal is to make that information, again, accessible to people so that they can change things within their communities, being armed with the information. That's where it starts, is having that access to the information so you can make the necessary changes. This is the team that's been assembled at the Citizen Report. We are primarily, again, storytellers. We have graphic designers, illustrators, and then we have people in the civics world. We have fantastic researchers, and we all just came together because we saw that same gap, that information gap of people just not having access or not knowing that these things can affect their lives. And what we're trying to do is to take that and build a generation of people who will be engaged again, who will feel like they're part of the system, who feel currently ignored or who feel overlooked or who feel helpless. We want to change that, and we want to fill the gaps. The other day I bought a book on Ugandan history, and the friend I was with said, I bet this book has fewer, it's supposed to have 150 characters who have shaped Uganda. And my friend said, I bet this book has fewer than 10% women, which sounded really cynical, and we literally counted, and sadly that was the truth. So what we are trying to do is to focus a lot on telling the stories, particularly of women in our communities, because they are consistently overlooked. It feels very weird for me to be on stage now talking about this because most of our team is women, but I'm the one who happens to be here. This has been a real focus for us, is telling stories about women in our communities and how they've shaped the country that we live in. So the Citizen Report, data, civics, history, build a picture of Uganda. Thank you.
Reach there, the Citizen Report.
My question is more around money.
Yes.
And just what's your revenue model? How are you sustaining so far? Do you plan on making money from it? What does that look like both now and in the future?
So up to this point, we have been entirely a non-profit, and we run essentially on funding. That's how it's worked. Why I say up to this point, we're going to continue to be a non-profit, but thanks to the Aga Khan, which we are now cohorts of, we have been tasked with producing a product that we're going to have to find ways to sell and market, but that won't be necessarily for our revenue. That'll be just to sustain that product. We exist entirely as a non-profit, and we run on funding.